today's video is probably one that's answered with no by just about every baseball fan. It's to get the players ramped back up and ready for the season, some fans say. Others believe it's for young players to prove themselves and make a team's opening day roster. In this video, I will be looking at many different teams' spring training records, stats, and patterns to see if spring training sometimes hints at what will happen during the regular season. But before I get into that, guys, please go like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps me out. Now let's get into the video. To start, I want to say I might be going back a couple of years to reference the correlation between spring training and the real season. For example, back in 2019, the Yankees, Astros, Nationals, Athletics, and Brewers all finished high in spring training and high in the regular season. Remember when the Athletics and Nationals were good? Anyway, the Orioles, Reds, and White Sox all finished spring training badly and ended the season badly. But were all of those just one-time occurrences? No. Again in 2020, the Yankees finished with winning records in both spring training and the season, along with the Athletics. But what if teams in spring training completely are opposite from their regular season performances? It was apparent that this could happen when the Marlins finished first in the Grapefruit League in 2021, but had 95 losses in the regular season. The same year, the Astros were last in the Grapefruit League and flipped to win 95 games. That is fascinating, considering the Astros were one of the teams that won in both spring training and the regular season back in 2019. What does this mean for other teams that just a few years ago won in both parts of the season? Well, weirdly, the Nationals were the exact same as the Astros, and the Reds were the exact same as the Marlins too. There are 21 teams I have not mentioned, and already things are getting a little bit confusing. 5 of these teams are in the NL West, and I have not mentioned any of them. That is probably because I could not find any correlation between any of their records, but I was able to find some correlation between stats. The most shocking thing I found was that in the last 2 seasons, the Rockies have led the NL West in runs scored during spring training, but are always near the bottom in runs scored during the regular season. It is odd because the Rockies play in a park that is known for being the most hitter-friendly field in baseball. But why does that matter, you might ask? That matters because it seems that whenever the Rockies score a lot of runs in spring training, they score a little amount of runs during the season. That is a big hint toward how the Rockies season will go every year. As for the 4 other teams in the NL West, they seem to be different on a year-to-year basis. Every year from 2015 to 2020, one team from the NL West finished top 3 in the Cactus League. That team every year either finished in first or last in the division. There is another big hint of spring training records to regular season records. Every one of the 4 remaining teams or that team at least once. It seems to just depend on the teams in this division. They are what I call wild cards between spring training and regular season stats and records. So why do some teams' spring training give different clues to what will happen during the season every year? That is a question I can't answer, but it certainly matters. The other 16 teams left are part of the NL East, NL Central, AL West, AL East, and AL Central. Out of the 16 teams, the Royals, Guardians, Angels, Mariners, Rangers, and Cubs are in the Cactus League. Out of those 6 teams, the Angels field has a ballpark factor higher than the Diamondbacks. This is important because the Cactus League plays in Arizona, so you can compare the ballpark factor of the Arizona Diamondbacks to the other teams' ballparks. If you don't know what the ballpark factor is, it takes the rate of stats at a home field and compares them to a rate of stats at the away field. If it is a hitter-friendly ballpark, it has an above 1.0 factor, and if it is a pitcher-friendly ballpark, it has a below 1.0 factor. The Angel Stadium has a ballpark factor of 1.096, which is 4th in baseball. This is ahead of the Diamondbacks at 10th with a ballpark factor of 1.038. So every year, the Angels can expect an uptick in production right when they go from the Cactus League to the regular season. Therefore, this matters because if the Angels have a bad record in spring training, they can expect it to get a little bit better during the regular season. The other 5 teams I mentioned from the Cactus League are all below the Diamondbacks. So, just like the Angels can expect an uptick in production from spring training to the regular season, all of these teams can expect a downtick in offensive production from spring to the real season. For example, in 2018 spring training, the Royals had a record of 16-13, but they finished the regular season with a 58-104 record. There are countless examples of this happening with all 5 of these teams, and this matters a lot to determine who should make the opening day roster and if those teams would make the playoffs. Most of the time, these teams start the season slow, and it impacts them for the rest of the year because they are all used to better offense. We are now down to 10 teams, all of them in the Grapefruit League. Technically, I could do the same with the Grapefruit League as I did with the rest of the Cactus League, but for the sake of the video, I'll only do that with one team. The Tampa Bay Rays obviously play in Florida, and that is where the Grapefruit League is. So they can expect every year for their production to be the same, which means they will likely have the same ratio every year of wins and losses. For example, in 2017, they finished with a losing record in spring training by 4 games, and finished the regular season 2 games under 500. The final teams I have yet to talk about consist of 5 National League teams and 4 American League teams. The Red Sox, Blue Jays, Tigers, and Twins are the 4 teams left from the American League. Over the past 2 seasons, 3 of these 4 teams have finished with an at or above 500 mark at home in spring training. What happened to those 3 teams at home during the regular season? Well, you guessed it. They are all above 500. The one team that was below 500 in spring finished below 500 in the regular season. That is insane, and another reason the spring training stats do matter. 4 of the 5 teams that are still left are some of the best teams in baseball, but the one other team has been possibly the worst team in baseball for over a half decade. The Pittsburgh Pirates. Through the last 10 seasons, the Pirates have finished below 500 in away games, in spring training 8 times, and 7 times in the last 7 seasons. In every one of those seasons, they have also finished below 500 in away games during the regular season. There is yet another hint to the fact that the spring training stats do matter. The Cardinals are the last team in the NL Central that I have not talked about. Could I have done the Pirates and Cardinals together? Yes, but that would have made it less fun. Since 2018, the Cardinals have flipped from a run differential above 20 to one below 20 every spring training. Surprisingly, they have had more success in the seasons where they finished with at least a negative 20 run differential in spring training than the ones where they finished over a plus 20 run differential. This matters because the Cardinals seem to be one of the teams that have opposite regular seasons than what their spring training stats suggest will happen. Surprisingly, I didn't purposely leave these final 3 teams as the last one, despite whether you think I did or not, but the final 3 teams that I have not talked about are the 3 powerhouses of the NL East. The Braves, Mets, and Phillies are the frontrunners of baseball in my eyes, and the fact that they are all in the same division scares me as a Mets fan. The question is, can we find any patterns with these 3 teams that hints towards what they will do in the regular season? I'm going to start with the Braves. The powerhouse of the NL East over the past 10 years of spring training has never had a run differential above 6. The Houston Astros were in the National League the last time they had a successful spring. Amazingly, about half the seasons since 2021 have seen the Braves dominate the NL East with a run differential above 100, but more insanely, the other half has seen them flounder to the bottom of the NL East and have a run differential below negative 100. The Braves seem to be one of those all-or-nothing teams, even when they continue to play bad baseball in spring training. Since 2019, the Mets have been weirdly mediocre in spring training. This became even more apparent in the 2021 and 2022 spring training sessions when they finished with a 500 record in each of them. Long story short, the Mets seem to be a wild card. While I am trying to prove that spring training matters more than people think, it seems that either way the Mets seem to choke or be an amazing team in the regular season. You would think that the Phillies would score a lot of runs in spring training and the regular season because of how potent their offense is. Actually, in 2021 and 2022 spring trainings, the Phillies scored less runs than they gave up. This is weird, but when you hear what I'm going to say next, it will make sense. In 2020, they led the Grapefruit League in spring training and scored a lot more runs than their opponents in spring training. They ended up giving up more runs than they scored during the regular season. The Phillies are one of the few teams that seem to be ending up opposite in the regular season than what their spring training numbers are. Please let me know what you all think of this video and what I could have done differently. I truly believe spring training does matter, and all the evidence I showed in this video I think really backs that up. Please like, subscribe, comment. I really love reading those. It helps me out. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next video.